So last week, Supabase announced that they are going into general availability. This basically just means like, hey, we are ready for you to use in production. Even though, to be honest, I think a lot of people already were, and it wouldn't have stopped me. But I'm glad to see it's here. And a lot of the stuff that they kind of announced with this is really cool. These are like, obviously, these are vanity metrics and stats, but it is when you're looking at database providers and you're looking at these pieces of technology to effectively build your products on top of. Database is one of the most important key pieces in here, and a lot of these numbers are very, a lot of these numbers are really good to see, and this really feeds into the narrative, which I think this was probably just a me thing, but I've always had this perception that Supabase is just a Firebase alternative, and that kind of comes with a lot of negative connotations for me personally. If you know anything about my history, the first 2 years of my web dev journey were all in Firebase. I initially was building a bunch of really cursed apps with Firebase, and I just never really took the platform all that seriously, and I still really don't. I don't think that Firebase is a real platform for real apps. I think it works for some basic stuff, and it can be helpful here and there, but I never built anything serious with it. And for the longest time, I had that impression of Supabase too. I figured like, okay, this is just the open source version of this. But it's just not. It is so much more than that. And I have been very happy to have been proven very wrong on this front, to the point where, like, to me, the way I think of Supabase now is it's Postgres, basically. It's the Postgres database with a bunch of really compelling stuff built on top of it. And clearly, I am not alone in this assessment. The number of databases they're hosting has massively scaled up. Their community is way bigger than I thought. Obviously, GitHub stars is one of those metrics where, like, is that a direct correlation to how good the product is? No. But to see this big of a jump, especially between that and MongoDB, I think, is MongoDB a public company? Wait, hold up. MongoDB is a publicly traded company trading at like $300? What the hell? Huh. I did not know or expect that at all. Okay, well, cool. So clearly they are massively outpacing the publicly traded MongoDB. I don't know how that works. But yeah, so clearly the community is growing, which is always good to see. And this is actually one of the graphs that I was by far the most interested in, is the proven scalability for this and all the companies that are actually using it. Clearly, Supabase works quite well for a large scale and is not just a toy Firebase type product thing here, clearly, as we can see in this. And what was really interesting to me about this is that the fact that most of these were AI companies. One of the things that I have been most focused on lately is trying to get into building these, I don't want to call them GPT wrappers, because I think if you just build a basic GPT wrapper, I mean, Sam Altman has said this directly, you're going to get nuked. There's just no hope for that to be anything serious for more than a few months. But I do think that real serious normal applications that are enhanced with AI in some way, so say, for example, you have a more enhanced search feed, you have a new way of interfacing with your application with a lot of the generative AI stuff that Vercel is pushing. I think that has a lot more legs to it, and that's something that I am personally really, really interested in. And it does seem like Supabase has become a very dominant provider, a very dominant infra level provider for a lot of these AI companies because of PG Vector and because of all the things they're doing there. I think they actually have an announcement about that in this GA week, so we'll get to that in a second here. This is really cool to see, because these are the sorts of companies which I kind of want to be building things that are similar to, and if it's working for them, it will probably end up working for me, hopefully. And yeah, they basically call this out right here. They basically said Postgres has been instrumental in our scalability and adoption. Its versatility is best demonstrated by PG Vector, and this is, I think, one of the key pieces that's really going to get me interested in this is we were the first cloud provider to offer it, and today 15% of all new Supabase projects use PG Vector for AI and ML workloads. Look out for a few related announcements this week. So last week they announced a bunch of different stuff. Really, there were 4 big things. There were now the Supabase functions now support AI models. Supabase Auth now supports anonymous sign-ins. The Supabase storage now supports the S3 protocol, and the new security advisor and performance advisor. I want to go through all of these. I'm going to actually go through them in like my ascending order of how interested in them I am. And this will probably surprise a lot of people, but the one I'm actually least interested in is the S3 protocol. Now, let me be super clear. This is a huge W. This makes the platform even more compelling because it is adhering to large scale standards, which will make adopting this in serious projects even easier. One of the things that I like about the pitch of what they're doing here is the fact that it's just Postgres. And what that means is that they're building technology on top of a big open source standard. And since all of their stuff is open source, it can be very easily adopted or not adopted as you want it to. Your users live in a users table within your database. Your database is just a Postgres instance with a really nice console in front of it. Your storage now supports the S3 protocol and makes it more portable and makes it just work better with the general industry standards. Instead of going off and making some new standard or whatever, they're working on the S3 protocol, which is awesome to see. And if you go down here, they actually mention exactly what I said. We always strive to adopt industry standards at Supabase. Supporting standards makes workloads portable, a key product principle. The S3 API is undoubtedly a storage standard, and we're making it accessible to developers of various experience levels. The S3 protocol is backwards compatible with our other APIs. If you're already using storage via our REST APIs or TUS APIs, today you can use any S3 client to interact with your buckets and files, upload with TUS, serve them with REST, and manage them with the S3 protocol. That's awesome. This is exactly the kind of things I was talking about and is awesome to hear. Getting those standards supported will make this a much more compelling thing to use and will make Supabase storage a much better piece to include in a stack. Next one I really want to talk about here is actually this anonymous sign-in thing. When I first saw this, I was like, this felt really gimmicky to me. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of neat. You can just anonymously sign in. Cool. Who cares? But it actually, the more I looked at it, it's actually a really cool idea, and I think I might actually put this into some of the things I'm working on. Insider Viz, I don't think would really benefit from it, and Block definitely wouldn't. But the little like Weights AI app I've been playing around with, which I actually switched the backend on that over to Supabase because it's doing a lot of ML stuff, and I want to use that as a testing bed to learn the vectors and all that stuff and play with PG Vector and that kind of thing. But the anonymous sign-ins on that would be really cool. If you could like sign in with an Anon account and get to try it for like a day or something, and then it'll just block your Anon account after that, that would be really, really cool. And the way this actually works for implementing it in code is really, really simple. All it is you just can call subase.auth.sign in anonymously. That will just give them a temporary anonymous account. And when you call that, that will go ahead and create a new authenticated but anonymous user. So it will have the flag of anonymous equals true. There won't be an email attached to it or anything like that. But to make the user permanent, all we actually have to do is just update the user to give them an email or to actually link an OAuth identity. So what we can do is really effectively make nice little demos for our end users, let them try things out. I think they mentioned up here another use case you could do for this is in e-commerce applications, letting them use a shopping cart without fully authenticating before checking out. This would be kind of nice. When I was building Sediment a couple months ago, something we did run into was it is kind of annoying to have like some of your users are authenticated when they check out, some of them aren't. We didn't want to force anyone to have to sign in. That kind of sucks for our user flow. So we wanted to make it so that you can do it anonymously, but the anonymous meant there was no account. So now forcing there to at least be an anonymous user account associated with every transaction would probably make this a much better experience in general. So this is very cool to see. I want to play with this more. I'm trying to think, like I said, I think the Weights AI would definitely have the best use case for this. This really feels like a good way of doing product demos because I've heard a lot about this on Twitter, and this is something I'm thinking a lot about is like, okay, taking these little side projects I'm working on and these things that I've just been building for a while, and how do we make these into like real businesses and companies and stuff like that? And something I've heard a lot of people say is that even better than having a free tier, which there are some things I'm working on where it's just locked in. Like Insider is the core data is always going to be free. We've just made that bargain. That's just how we've done it. And I don't want to go back on that. But for a lot of the things I'm looking at doing, I think it would make a lot of sense to, for a lot of the things I'm looking at doing, like, you know, if Weights AI becomes a real app, it feels like I'd want to basically paywall the entire thing and just make it so like you basically have to pay to use it. But I want to have a good free trial experience and make it so that if you just land on the site, you can quickly try it, play with it, get the value prop out of it, and then instantly see like, oh, this is really nice, and then throw the paywall at them. That feels like a really good way. I guess that sounds kind of scummy, but I mean, that's how you do it. That's business. So like that feels like a really good way of doing this. And they just gave us the tools to do so. The next thing, which I thought was really cool, is that the AI interface is now available within the Supabase Edge functions. And of all the features in Supabase, this is probably the one that I personally have found myself using the least in the projects where I've been using this lately. If you know anything about me, I like building with a server. I like building in SvelteKit or Next.js or whatever. So I don't typically end up using Supabase the way you can kind of use it in a Firebasey type way with like the client side SDK. I know that there are some advantages to that, and a lot of people like building like that. I tried it for a while, and just I don't know. For me personally, I much prefer just working with things on the server, using Drizzle to interface with my database, etc. It just feels much better to me. And, if I already have a server, the edge functions aren't nearly as important for me. But this is really cool. So what they did is they said basically what they've done is they said we're making it super easy to run AI models within Supabase Edge functions. A new built-in API is available within the Edge runtime to run inference workloads in just a few lines of code. So, I mean, literally all they're doing here is they're just saying supabase.ai.session and then passing in GTE small. What is um okay. So yeah, so they're using GTE small, so you can generate embeddings using models like GTE small to store and retrieve with PG vector. This is available today. This is really cool. So we can just use these little we can use these edge functions to generate the embeddings for any of these different things we want to create. So this will create the embeddings for Luke, I am your father, and then we can use this later on to power our AIs eventually. And they also said that they will eventually allow use for large language models like Llama 2 and Mistral. They're using the big open source ones, which is a dub. That's something that I personally want to get more into. I have only ever really done any of this from the just using OpenAI's API because that's the only thing I really know how to do. But I want to play with these open source ones and figure out if I can actually get these running in production because I've gotten them working locally, but how do you host them? How do you manage all this stuff? I don't fully know how all that works. So it's cool to see that they're going to be working with the two big open source ones, and then I'll be progressively rolled out as we get our hands on more GPUs. Have fun with that. They go over what I think is probably the most compelling use case for this and how I would actually use it down here, which is effectively using these edge functions to automatically generate the embeddings for new content which you insert into your database. So what you can do here is they show off a really cool thing here with database webhooks. Another cool thing about having your database and all these things integrated together is we have our little Postgres table here. So say, for example, this was like my I won't give it too much of an example here, but we just have a basic Postgres table here. We have our text column. I want to insert into my text column, and then I have an optional column over here, which is my vector column. And what we can do is whenever we insert into this table, it will call the post request to convert the embeddings on this entry. It'll go through, call the edge function, create the embeddings, and insert those in the proper row. And as they say down here, edge functions are the perfect background worker. We've created a simple example to show how you can generate embeddings and edge functions, semantic search with PG vector and edge functions. I am going to not do this in this video, but I will definitely be checking this out later. I need to spend some time with this. So all of this really comes together to basically just mean more AI support, which is something I am very excited for. The last and final thing, which probably most people wouldn't think would be the most interesting piece of all this, but to me honestly probably is the security advisor and performance advisor. So these are the kinds of things which to me make a database provider just way more pleasant to use and are the kind of things that I really loved about PlanetScale when I was using that. Having things like a security advisor for detecting insecure database configuration, performance advisor to catch when I inevitably forget indexes or create some abomination of a query which completely nukes the entire database, and an index advisor for ensuring that we have the proper indexes added for our slow queries. All of these things are super, super helpful for production workloads, and I've been saved by these many, many times, and I'm really, really glad to see these are coming to Supabase, or I guess they're in Supabase. They show everything off down here. We've got the new security advisor, which will just make sure that our RLS, which will make sure that all of our RLS policies are valid. We will also have the performance advisor down here, which is good to see. So you can see here in the picture, so like one of the issues here is there's an unindexed foreign key on the public.public child table, and then it will tell us what the issue is here. So there's a foreign key constraint without a covering index. They also have like there's no primary key on this table. There's an unused index. All these things are super helpful to see and know on this. They also have the index advisor in here, which is just great to see. I think Mongo has this, which has saved our asses so many times at Insider Viz, because our old forum solution was running in Mongo, and PlanetScale had this. Really great to see. So what the indexes will do is they'll tell you like, hey, you need to add this index on your public.files. It'll give you a performance up by 82%, make your life a lot better. You should definitely be doing it. And overall, this is all just really good stuff. And yeah, that's really what I wanted to talk about. There is way more to this, obviously, than what I just went over here. And if you want to really get deep into this, I highly recommend reading them yourselves. I didn't want to sit here and make you listen to me read through the entire thing verbatim. I think that this very much, I wanted to just give a high level overview of the cool things that they're adding and really just kind of give my perspective on Supabase as a platform and the way I'm sort of feeling about it. I think it's one of those ones that I can definitely see myself using more and more in the future. In fact, I am currently using it for a lot of things. So I'm going to crystallize a lot of this into another video, which I'll probably put out tomorrow. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, make sure you like and subscribe, and I will talk to you again soon.